I'm Sam. I write for TechRaptor. I'm the assistant reviews editor, and I get scared by The Sims.
Same.
I'm Jeffrey Lerman. I'm also a staff writer on TechRaptor, and most of the games that scare me I'm going to mention are from when I was younger.
I'm Max Moeller. I'm also staff writer at TechRaptor, and also most of the games that scared me were from when I was younger. Now I'm a bit more jaded.
Alright, I'll go now. I'm Nick. I do videos and sometimes write for TechRaptor, even though I'm shitty at writing. And the things that scare me are most jump scares in games. I can't handle them.
And hi, I'm Robert. I'm features editor at TechRaptor, and nothing scares me because I'm a big boy.
Wow. So the topic this, month is scary games, because Halloween is probably in a couple days by the time this is going up, but unless you're listening in November, then you missed it. What games scared us and what scared us in video games? So let's start. Sam, what is the most recent scary game you've kind of played, or that actually bothered you?
The most recent scary game I played, I actually wrote about for the site. It's called, I'm totally going to screw this pronunciation up because it's I think it's ancient Norse or something, but it's called Absolve End of Gods, and it's like this weird sci-fi horror game based on Norse mythology, only it's, I don't know, it's like you're running around getting chased by creepy robotic versions of Norse myths. So that's pretty interesting and spooky, and also, I don't know, I was spooked by it.
What do the robots do? Are they hunting you?
So you're playing like this lady who, at the start of the game, she ends up in another realm because, the world tree and the 9 realms of Norse or whatever. And she gets her arm torn off and turned into a cyborg. And some Norse god is obsessed with her because of reasons that I don't want to spoil. And then they send Fenris after you, which is great. And it's awesome.
It's a good start to that game, having your arm ripped off.
It's in first person and it's very gory.
That sounds great. Sounds like a good
say. I don't remember which one. Someone might be able to help me here, because that reminds me of one of the Dead Space games. Was it Dead Space? I think, where the part with the eye, being impaled.
Oh,
I think that was
control it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Dead Space 2.
Good times. Reminds me of that with the arm being ripped off.
I love how the Dead Space games are one of those games where there's just montages on YouTube. They're just every death in Dead Space, because they're all just so gross.
Yeah, no, that was another thing with one of the more recent Tomb Raiders. I don't remember which again, but just another one where it was a montage of just the different types of gory deaths you could have. Just reminds me of that. I remember even Conan O'Brien had a bit on his game show where that was a big part of it, where he was just going from one clip to the next.
Yeah.
I think that was, what was that, Rise of the Tomb Raider?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's what it was.
Shadow or something of the Tomb Raider.
Pretty sure Tomb Raider was there.
Yeah.
The recent Tomb Raider trilogy, honestly, has been a lot more gory. I remember when they revealed the first one way back in 2012 or something, and there was just that shot of just Lara just being impaled by some rebar or something.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just okay, that sets the tone here that this is going to be gory.
Did everybody here play Resident Evil 2?
The original or the remake?
The remake.
I did.
I plan on playing it this week.
It's so good. That's actually one that, Resident Evil 7 didn't scare me a bit, but 2, for some reason, really just kind of fucked me up. You just having Mr. X just walking into rooms all the time, just so frustrating. I don't know, stuff like persistent things like that in games, I think are the scariest. That you can't necessarily beat. What was that one? The first person one that started all this trend.
Amnesia?
Yeah, that kind of stuff, or PT. I mean, PT was on another level, just because it just kind of caught you by surprise.
You mean walking simulator horror games?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I don't know why a lot of people don't like them. There's a sect of people that really likes games like Outlast and Amnesia, and there's a lot of them that don't, and I've heard people call them that, which I find funny, because I think there's a lot more to it than just walking simulators. But I've always found it interesting that some people just really don't like the idea of like you not being able to fight back or anything like that. It seems like they sort of want more of the Resident Evil 7 style, where like you're weak but you can fight back instead of just running away and constantly having to hide, like in Alien Isolation, for example. Games like that. I've noticed there's like a divide in the type of people who either like or hate both of those things.
I like games where you can fight back personally, because usually it creates like an area where you feel helpless. And I understand both sides of it, but when you're helpless, it's just like anything that appears scares you, and it's very easy to create tension there where any sound you're like, oh cool, I literally have nothing I can do against this except run, and hopefully it'll stop chasing me eventually. So I can see it from both sides.
Yeah, whenever I think of games, like scary games where you fight back, I always think of Dead Space because it always surprises you. Even though, yeah, you know, I know how to dismember those guys or whatever, but there are certain bosses that just like they freak you out to look at them, which makes it psychologically weird to aim your gun at them. And then, like, I remember there was one time where it was like late into the game where you could save, and you know, it's like, oh cool, save rooms. I know, like, I've trained my gamer brain to feel safe in a save room. Then right after you're done saving, there's a jump scare, and you're like, nope, I hate this game. Fuck this game.
Well, that's what made Resident Evil 2, the remake, so great, because you're so used to being safe in safe rooms, and then Mr. X is just like, hey, what's up?
Well, also, by the time he shows up, like, you're pretty much stopping every zombie in your way and every licker, and then, like, Mr. X just shows up, and you shoot his stupid hat off, and then he just moves faster, and you can't actually kill him. So it just makes it so frustrating, which I guess is the real horror, being frustrated.
Yeah.
You know, just going back to Dead Space, I was going to say, which seems to be the same case with Resident Evil. That's definitely one game that taught me to curb stomp every single body I see, no matter what it looks like, whether it's dead already. You just, once again, it goes whether it's horror or not. It's just, you never feel safe.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to ask the room here, were there any games when you were younger that, like, you look at it and, like, when you look back now, like, as an adult, you think, man, that was stupid. Why did 10-year-old me find that scary?
So, I made a joke when introducing myself that I was The Sims, but when I was a kid and The Sims was still new, that game had a really weird soundtrack that, like, if someone fell asleep, it would play these weird mumbling noises, or if a criminal broke into your house, it, like, suddenly got really loud and dramatic. And as a kid, that terrified me for some reason, and I couldn't really tell you why.
Huh.
Definitely a weird one that you found that unsettling, but I guess,
Yeah.
like you said, being as a little kid, it just doesn't always have to make sense.
Yep.
In reality, this was like a year ago.
The Sims soundtrack is intense. I could see it scaring some kids, just being a little, like, just making you feel a little off in a game that's supposed to be like fun and relaxing. The soundtrack is not fun and relaxing.
Yeah, but slightly more serious answer. There's a game on the original PlayStation, I think it was also on PC, called Fade to Black, which I don't think anyone actually played the game. It was supposed to be a sequel to Flashback, but as far as I'm aware, no one actually played it. But at the time, it was interesting because it does a lot of things modern games do now, like over-the-shoulder aiming, except it did it on the PlayStation, but also it sucked, so there is that problem. But every time you died in that game, they played like a pre-rendered CG cutscene of your character horribly dying, and it's another game that has, like, here's all the death sequences on YouTube, and if you look at it now, it's like really cheesy and stupid because the game came out in 1995. But, like, some of the death sequences are like, if you get killed by a laser, it then plays this CG cutscene of your character getting violently gunned down. Or if you step on a toxic blob, it plays one of your character, like, literally dissolving from radiation sickness, or all your skin melting off and you turn into a skeleton. And at the time, it was like, oh god, this is horrifying. How does anyone play this game?
You played that as a kid?
Yeah, and it came out in 1995, and I think by the time I got my hands on it, I was like 6 or 7, and it's really stupid looking now, but at the time, it terrified me.
I mean, the way you describe it, I I kind of feel like, yeah, it'd be terrifying.
If you've ever seen the Blob, where there's the scene where the guy gets dissolved into the blob and then you see his skeleton floating around inside of it, it's kind of like that, including the same nowadays. It looks super cheesy and stupid.
Definitely.
House of the Dead 1 scared the shit out of me when I was little. There's no reason for it to scare me, but I remember I would like go home, and at night I would think about like just all the zombies in that game and stuff, and it really bothered me. But I look back and it's a really cheesy, kind of dumb game, and nothing's really scary about it. But at the time, like, I don't know, it just, maybe because when I was 9, it was just enough to like stick with me. Another game was D on the PS1, which I think nobody has ever played. And like, if you look at it right now on like YouTube, it is literally the most crappiest looking PS1 game ever. But that game gave me nightmares for weeks. Like, yeah, it was pretty bad.
One thing that weirdly scared me was the caves in Oblivion, like the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I usually wouldn't go into them. Like, I would play the game by myself all the time, but when it came to going into the caves, I would usually wait until like I had a friend over or something to go into them. And looking back, I thought it was kind of dumb because they're all essentially the same thing. Like, they're really templated, really boring, just gray, rocky, linear areas that just like go in a few different pathways. But I think I played with the darkness too low, so like you just couldn't really see anything that was going on, and you would just have like the really crappy looking zombies like coming after you and everything. And just looking back, it just wasn't anything terrifying at all, but I was always a little scared to go into them by myself.
Those caves were like amnesia for you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Maybe there's something to, like, when we're younger, we kind of use our imagination more, so everything is just way scarier than it needs to be.
Right.
Or we were just all really stupid in the 90s.
There you go.
I was
That's the real answer.
Yeah, I was pretty stupid when I was a kid, so.
Yeah.
To be fair, like, your first time seeing some of these visuals or even just the sounds, like, you haven't consumed enough media yet. I feel like the first time you saw a zombie in a game or a movie is probably terrifying, you know?
Right. Like, and also I feel that, you know, when you're playing Oblivion for the first time, especially when you're younger, you know, you haven't played as many other games to get a sense of it. Because now, like, if I played a hypothetical Elder Scrolls 6, right, like, I kind of know exactly what to expect in every cave just because I've played enough Bethesda games to kind of know exactly what's about to happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine, like, the Skyrim dungeons, like, if that was a kid's first game, I can imagine those being pretty creepy for them. Like, the skeletons that are sitting in the walls and then, like, wake up and come out when you walk past them. That's a little unsettling at first.
Yeah. For sure.
I had something small when I was younger that wasn't, like, anything too major, but still, I guess, a horror game. I don't even remember much of the game myself. I think my brother was probably playing it, and this goes back to Dreamcast, Evil Dead, Hail to the King. So, the game itself
there's an Evil Dead game?
Yeah. I was gonna say, it wasn't even creepy, the game itself. It probably was, but what kind of scared me goes back to even with Sam, where it was a music thing. The main theme, just intro, I think, was just kind of, like, ambient and creepy, and I used to play it in my basement, and I think one time my brother or I left it on for some reason, just at the main menu, and I opened my basement door and heard it with the lights off, and it was just freaking terrifying. I was too scared to like go turn it off. I just left it on all night. I was like, nope, not dealing with this. Yeah, just a little thing to like become unsettling, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty good though. I love how it's not just the game itself, but like the whole everything around it. Let me think. So my story is a little bit weird in that so like I have arachnophobia now. Spiders freak me out, but I didn't when I was younger. Because like I know the first time I saw like Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets, you know, there's a ton of spiders in that, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I started playing the Hobbit game, like the old one, I think on the GameCube. And early in the game, there's a segment with a bunch of giant spiders, and I got to it, and I was like, this is fine, whatever. Like, I'll save here. I'm done playing today. I'll come back to it later, right? And then later that week, some friends of mine just got the DVD for Chamber of Secrets, and we're like, let's watch it again. And I don't know what it was, but something like, I guess, primal in me triggered, where I was like, nope, spiders, just... I can't deal with spiders anymore. And then when I went back to the Hobbit game, it loaded me up right into the middle of the big spider cave for the quest or some shit. I was like, nope, I'm not beating this game. I'll just wait till the movie comes out in like 15 years to figure out what happens to the Hobbit, because I can't.
Could have read the book.
That's true. I could have done that.
I had to wait 15 years.
No, I get that though.
You're gonna open up the book right to the scene with the spiders.
That's true. And then a spider falls out, and then I throw away the book.
Let me,
Like
let me tell you a true Sam story, which is kind of like this. Once upon a time, I opened the case to Resident Evil 4, and there was a spider inside.
Oh my god.
No.
Good story.
Yeah, it ruined my life.
You're like that guy that had all the cockroaches in his PS4.
Oh, my
That
God.
happens to a lot of people.
I know. I don't even want to open mine. But no, for me it was mine's kind of similar with snakes. Like I hate snakes; they just creep me out. So like Resident Evil 1 has been really hard to beat. And then in like Resident Evil 4, when you would open up boxes, there would be snakes in them sometimes, and that would make me like drop the controller, even though it's not
yeah.
near me. It's just a jump scare with a snake. I can't. Ugh. I like turn a game off for that.
Yeah, no, even freaking, I don't know if anyone's played the latest Halloween update with Apex Legends. I went into it not knowing anything. Yeah, the horror mode, I forget what it's called. But they did the same thing where now they have like little jump scares in some of the pods you can loot where like a bug or something will jump out. And I had no idea going into it. Literally, of course, got me. Not like that, not the game that I really would have thought that would have happened in.
Yeah, I kind of like that. That's actually a fun Halloween-themed update for an online game.
Yeah, no, they did a good job.
Is this the one where also zombies jump with you and then hit the ground and splat? Or is that Fortnite?
I'm not sure, honestly.
That might be Fortnite. I don't recall. I haven't played a ton of the Apex one, but I don't recall that.
I just remember
That could be Call of Duty.
I just remember one of them for Halloween. Zombies jump with you and then they hit the ground and explode.
So that sounds funny more than scary to me.
Yeah, it does.
It sounds like the best thing. So
You still have to do my best method in Apex Legends, which is take control of the jump and then fly everyone off the map and see who comes with you and dies. People get so mad.
They really do.
oh, you had places to be.
I guess on the topic of like a Halloween update and stuff like that, are there any like good like Halloween games or expansions or anything that come to mind?
I feel like we legally have to mention Costume Quest.
Yeah.
It's just the ultimate trick-or-treating game where you dress up in costumes for Halloween and fight monsters while getting candy by trick-or-treating.
What was that infamous one? Where you're a vampire on Halloween?
Festival of Blood, I think.
Yep, that's it. That one was pretty good. I can't think of anything else besides like, I mean, there's always like shooter events like Call of Duty and stuff, but
Yeah, like Overwatch. They do the same thing every year. It was cool the first year.
Yeah.
Juckenstein.
Yeah, they really do the same thing every year. Why is that? Like, you'd think they'd change it up at least a little.
Yeah, with
Because
all
they're
the
building a story.
Oh, Guild Wars 2, I guess kind of does the same thing, but the first year or two, their Halloween event was around. It was pretty cool. They had, like, a dungeon where you fight, like, a big, like, Pumpkin King, or, like, there was a, jump quest where you could, jump up, like, a haunted clock tower, and there was a bunch of, like, Halloween-themed, candy-themed items for you to collect. I thought it was pretty fun. They always go pretty all out with, like, their Christmas and Halloween events and everything, which I always appreciated when I played it. That's actually one of the biggest ones I think I've ever seen. Like the biggest Halloween events and themes.
I know back in the day, Maple Story was really good about holiday things, and every year there's always new gear and like. But I'm trying to think. Destiny kind of does it, but I don't like that theirs are very like. I don't know. It's like it's the season of light or something. It's kind of lame.
Season of the Undying right now. Is it even Halloweeny? I haven't noticed any Halloween stuff. I know they used to do pumpkin heads and stuff.
I haven't booted it up this week, but I know like in previous years, if you walked around the tower, they had like a scary soundtrack like playing, so you would hear like ghosts and stuff and chains rattling.
Well, the most important video game currently has a Halloween theme right now, and that's Pokemon Go. And
It does.
Oh god.
yeah, and it plays the original Lavender Town soundtrack at night.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's cool as
I
hell.
know
That's
that.
really good.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
And then it's also just generic like ghost stuff, and you can catch Pikachu in a costume.
Yeah, I was gonna say I actually really like the Pikachu costume this time around. It's Pikachu wearing the Mimikyu, like hat or something.
I think he's wearing like basically the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's Pikachu dressing up as Mimikyu dressing up as Pikachu.
Cosplayception.
And then Charmander literally is just wearing a Cubone skull on its head because that was its mom's skull, you monster.
Messed up.
It is.
Did everybody here play PT at all?
Yes,
No,
I did.
sadly.
Who didn't play it?
multiple times.
I have not.
That's a shame.
I didn't have
It was
at the time.
like oh my god. So everyone that played it, like, what did you think about? Like, did you think it was scary, or was it just more of like not, just kind of cool?
The scariest part of PT is that it's leading into a game that will never exist.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
But
It's Death
also,
Stranding.
That comes out next week or in a week or two.
The worlds
Yeah,
are
too.
connected.
Oh, yeah, that's happening.
Yeah. PT was a Strand game all along.
PT's connecting us right now.
I mean, they've got the same character in it. Norman Reedus.
All right, but the
Guillermo del
important
Toro?
thing is Norman Reedus is playing a character named Sam, and I'm Sam, so we have a connection. That's a Strand game.
You're a Strand game.
Points for effort.
Thank you. PT was really good though, to get back on topic, and genuinely terrifying for the time, and also it was free. And at the time I was just like, oh, it's a free demo, it's not going to be scary. That's stupid. They're not going to make a free demo scary. No, they made it terrifying.
What's like a full game on its own almost.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, I think it's still pretty scary. I like that when it came out, somebody took that shot of like Lisa in the hallway and they photoshopped it a bit and said it was real, and it like went viral.
Yeah.
I think an interesting part too, just real quick, going back to what Sam was saying about it being a free demo, like no one knew like who made it, where it came from. It was just this random game that everyone was like, oh, I'm just gonna try this real quick, and that was probably a big part of just throwing everyone off. Everyone was trying to figure out like this isn't just some, crappy indie game someone made real quick.
Yeah. And
Yeah, it was like Moby Dick Studios or something, or who was it that made it? Well,
I think Moby Dick was the name they used for Metal Gear Solid 5.
and
Back when it was still the Phantom Pain and not Metal Gear Solid 5.
oh yeah,
And didn't someone recently like data mine PT to find out that Lisa's always behind you? Like even though you don't see her,
Yeah.
obviously. Like.
Oh
but-
yeah, that
always
YouTuber
there.
that data mines all those different games.
Yeah, they
I
found
forget
out
his
basically from the second you pick up the flashlight, Lisa spawns behind you and is always behind you.
Dude, I remember he was tweeting about the process of him recording the video, and he was like, dude, playing it this many times is really mentally exhausting. Like, I have to keep constantly taking breaks. It's never not scary, even though he had been playing it for, like, he had played it through, like, tens of times, I think, at that point to get footage, and, like, was constantly, like, trying to break the game and stuff, and he just said it was the most exhausting thing he did in such a long time. I think that's
Wow.
really interesting.
Yeah,
before my PS4 died, I would show it to people, and it still made me jump. Like I knew it was coming, and it just, I don't know, something about it. It's just really well done. It was made by 7780s Studio, directed by Guillermo del Toro.
To say the worst part of PT for me, and I remember, I think the first time, like maybe halfway into it, I was playing alone, and then I was playing it with friends, and we were all just kind of talking while going through it, each of us, and it was just, even with people like in my ear, it was just such an unsettling game, and that's what I always like. It's definitely a challenge doing psychological horror, and PT was one that definitely did it well, because honestly, just something as common as literally just walking in the same loop constantly, you'd think, there's not much to work with, but every time you went through the loop, it was just, whether it was a new sound or a picture looking different, like, there were so many little details that became unsettling because you just weren't sure what was going to happen,
Yeah.
I literally just stopped walking several times. One time I looked at the ground and ran through a hallway because I didn't want to look at what was around. Yeah.
That's Alien Isolation, like the first couple of hours, that's also how I felt. Like I would play that with a group of friends and we would still like freak out. Even having people there with you like didn't really help much because, every single sound could be the alien and most likely is the alien, and there's no way you can fight back until like much later in the game. That was another one of those games that I think was mentally exhausting after a little bit early on until you start to learn how the alien works, and then it just becomes a grievance and annoyance. But like the first couple of hours are still some of the scariest moments in games for me, at least. I think that game is very well done in its beginning, like half.
Another part, or you go, Sam. Sorry.
What I'm finding entertaining is that all this though, like all these avoid the spooky monster in the woods games, all ties back to that really weird one-man Slender fan game that yeah, and everything seems to tie back to that one game. It's really weird thinking about it.
Yeah, I remember that, and I remember like I couldn't beat it because it was just so convoluted, and I guess we didn't really care that much about beating it at the point. Me and two of my friends would switch off playing it all the time with the headset on max volume, and then the other two would just watch and try to scare them. And like we would only survive for like 10-15 minutes, and it would get so loud that you'd actually like instinctually throw the headset off without even trying to. Like my body just did it because it was so loud and disturbing. Oh, good times.
Yeah, I actually like completely forgot about that game and the whole like Slenderman thing in general. Just kind of like
that was a real weird flash in the pan thing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Well, you'll still see Slenderman at like Halloween haunts and stuff like that now. Like theme parks still use it because I think no one really owns it. But yeah, that game was really frustrating. I think that's the thing with all of these, that they're all frustrating to a point, and that's what makes them scary. Like you can't just shoot the bad guy.
Right, and then you're always trying to accomplish like 8 different tasks while the bad guy is chasing you down.
And they all play with your imagination, like we were saying earlier. Like the Resident Evil 7 demo, I remember when that came out, there was so much going on where you're just like, I kept replaying it trying to find something new, and then they kept updating it throughout like the release, and then finally you could actually, in quotes, beat the demo and not die.
But that was not the canon ending, was it?
No, that was.
Really? Didn't you find the... Oh no, that's someone else. Yeah, that's Casey, you guys in the game. I forgot. I thought you found a tape of the guy being killed by the one really weird family member, the guy who's basically a Saw ripoff.
Yeah, the normal ending is the family man guy says welcome to the family and he punches you, and then the good ending is you jump out of the roof and go to the newspaper or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that demo being a pretty cool thing too, because it came out around the time after PT was like you couldn't download PT anymore, right? So Capcom was kind of like cashing in on the whole, hey, PT's gone, but we've got our own first-person horror demo on the store now.
Yeah, because I think it was that same E3 conferences in Guillermo del Toro. Kojima announced Death Stranding. So it was all around that time.
Do we know if Death Stranding is supposed to be like a thriller, or is it supposed to be like creepy or scary or anything like that? Because it looks a little off-putting, but from the gameplay I've seen, and I'm trying to remain somewhat in the dark on it, but from the gameplay I've seen, it's nothing like super scary or terrifying or anything. But is it supposed to be?
I don't know. That's a really good question, because I've been wondering that myself too. I don't know what the hell this game is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a Strand game, whatever that
Yeah,
means.
remember that. The Strand stuff, but yeah, I'm curious. It looks creepy, a little creepy. Like all the marketing is a little off. Mads Mikkelsen's character looks creepy, and all that stuff. But yeah, I just don't know if this is supposed to be something that is like a little intense, or that it's supposed to put me on edge, or exactly how that's supposed to work, which I think is interesting. I wonder if that's intentional or not.
I think it's gonna be more like psychological and less horror. Even if you look at like,
I was gonna say the little kid in us might get terrified of it. You never know.
yeah.
Right. I guess speaking of recent horror too, I've been slowly playing Blair Witch, the new one. And I remember when the first trailer came out, everyone was like, "Oh, is this Outlast 3?" Because it really looked like it was going to be like an Outlast sequel, because the character was like using the camera and running around with it. So playing it, I expected it to just be a lot like Outlast, and I really like those two games, the first and the second one. But something cool about it I found actually sort of addresses what we were talking about earlier, about how you can't really fight back in games like Outlast and stuff. In Blair Witch, you kind of can fight back against the different encounters that I've had so far, and they're really few and far between. Like, most of the game it's tense, like you're running around in a dark forest with a very, very limited point of view due to your flashlight, so like you feel scared, but the actual encounters and everything like that are very brief, and they're very, very spread out. So what actually works is we don't, like, I'm playing it with my girlfriend right now, and we don't know when anything is going to happen. Like in Outlast, you expect something to happen almost all the time, and in Blair Witch, it gets to the point where we let our guard down, or where we won't, or like we'll start just like going into certain areas and not thinking anything is going to happen, and then it finally gets you, it scares you, and it's a very, very brief interaction. And I'm actually really enjoying it. It's kind of refreshing, unlike Outlast, where you just get kind of exhausted of constantly having to run and hide from things and stuff like that, and sometimes it feels like, are you even going the right way, if like it's difficult. That just isn't happening in Blair Witch, and I think it's a nice little changing things up a little bit compared to most horror games I've played lately, and it's really surprising, because I expected it to be just sort of a generic horror game, but it's doing a lot different that I really like a lot of slight quality of life changes like that.
I definitely agree with I was just gonna say the challenge and like trying to make something not feel too repetitive, or the challenge when someone doesn't know where they're going, because that alone can just kill your, like, the fact that just the chance of you being scared. Because if you're just running in circles for 20 minutes with nothing happening, it kind of kills the mood. So that's definitely I think a big challenge for people, just designing horror games.
See, funnily enough, that's actually my experience with the Blair Witch game. I played it a bit because it's on Game Pass, so like it's free for me basically, and I kind of felt that it was a bit circular. So I kind of got bored of it and frustrated with it, rather than like feeling like I'm falling into the horror of this. Like, yeah, I'm suspending my belief. I'm waiting to get scared. So by the time I got to my first real jump scare, I was just like, I'm sick of this game.
Did you get past like the first third of it?
I think so. I got to the point where like there are definitely monsters.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I will say the first like hour and a half to 2 hours, we kind of felt that way too. And in fact, the only reason I pushed through is because I heard good things about it. And it's gotten better over time, in my opinion. But I agree that the first like hour or two, I actually didn't know where to go, especially the first like 45 minutes. And I thought that was kind of it. But I think it really picks up later on if you're willing to push past.
Okay, that's good to know.
Well, that's thanks to the wonders of Xbox Game Pass. I'm definitely going to be trying Blair Witch sometime soon.
Yep. Yeah, that's the only reason I'm trying it too. It's cool because it's probably one of those games I never would have bought, but always had like some interest in. And now here we are all playing it.
Has anyone done any VR horror?
Oh god. So I do a lot of PlayStation VR, especially for the site. What I've noticed is basically VR is almost like an amplifier to whatever the thing is. So if something is scary normally, VR tends to make it more scary because it's really, really good at putting you into the moment. On the other hand, though, if a game's like bad, it's like an amplifier to the bad. The VR just makes it worse somehow. So with horror games, which always seem to tread that really fine line between being like bad and scary, where usually a horror game can't manage to be scary, it's usually just bad. This means either VR horror games are like fantastic or horrible.
I've only done 2 of them. I I did Resident Evil at E3, and it was scary. Except like they had this candle that smelled like blood, like in the room. So the whole time I just kept thinking about how gross that candle was, and every jump scare just kind of made me just, I don't know, I was so thrown out of it. And then I did one at the Void, which is like, Disney has this like VR thing where you put on a whole like haptic suit and you have like a VR helmet and whatnot. And they got Ninja Theory to make a horror game called Nicodemus, where it's like the 1800s and you're going through the World's Fair and there's like monsters and stuff. It is so scary because it totally tricks your brain. Like everything but taste is like working. So if you walk into a room and they build this room, so every wall is like a real wall, and every puzzle is like a real puzzle that you have to interact with and stuff. And there's like areas where you'll hear a crash and you turn around and run away from it, and then the haptic suit, it feels like you're being stabbed in the back and stuff, and it's like it is the most scary thing.
Dude, that sounds
Nice. That sounds awesome.
cool.
Maybe you actually got stabbed in the back. You just don't know it.
Probably.
Make sure you're not missing any kidneys.
It also like how the Void is that, because their big one is their like Stormtrooper one, and I think they're doing that Avengers one now. But like every room is mapped, and it's a real room that you're in, so you could sprint to the other side of the room if you wanted to, and you could pick up certain like orbs and turn wheels and stuff. So you're trying to solve this puzzle while this like monster's chasing you, and there's like scary music and smoke is hitting you and like water is hitting you and stuff, and it's just really scary. But it's also really stressful too. And even like the other people, like their mouth will move with the character. So like if they're talking, their character's mouth will move too. So like we were picking each other's noses and stuff, and you'd see like the finger, it wouldn't go in their nose, but it would like slide up on their face. That was the only way to break the tension, because other than that, it was pretty exhausting.
That's awesome. I want to try that.
Yeah, that sounds like the next evolution of like theme park. Like that'd be the next hottest thing at theme parks, you know?
Oh yeah, and it's from Ninja Theory. So made Hellblade, the best Devil May Cry game, and then this.
Love
know,
that Devil May Cry game.
I remember at E3 they had something kind of like that, the Unreal Garden or something, and I ended up never going to it, but I kind of wanted to, where I think it was like you wore AR glasses and stuff and things happened around you.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I remember that.
I think that's the real future of horror, is this like VR kind of immersive experience where you actually walk around a room and stuff, because it's unlike anything else. Like it's like being in like a haunted maze, but you have to still solve the puzzle and stuff, and everything can like kill you and you feel it touching you.
Ugh.
Right. I feel like the haptic suit is something that really only Disney could afford to do, though. At least right now.
True. There are some other like companies and stuff. It's just Disney has like the IP with it and the money to, you know, tell Ninja Theory to make them a game.
Weirdly enough, it wasn't like a traditional horror experience by any means, or scary experience, but my first time ever in VR was at PAX East, like 2017, I think. And it was this game that eventually came out and is apparently just awful. Sam, I think you might have reviewed it. Someone reviewed it here, I think. But I forget what it's called, but it was just a game where you play as a bird and you have to look at a sign off in the distance, and if you hold your gaze on the sign, you move, and that's like the only gameplay. But it was my first time in VR, so I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So like you're a bird, you're flying in the air and everything, and they have you sat down on this stool that you can spin at like 360 degrees on. And I was flying in the air, just like looking around left and right and everything. And I felt something brush against my back. It was like the cord for the VR headset. So I was like, what the hell? So I kind of like looked down, and I realized I was flying like hundreds of feet in the air, and I'm afraid of heights. And I screamed at the top of my lungs, like in the middle of the PAX East demo, like just in this perfectly harmless, like just chill game. And they were like, what the heck? Like, why are you screaming and everything? And I was just like, I just looked down and it scared the crap out of me for a few seconds. And that was my first foray into VR. And I always thought that was kind of funny.
I don't remember this game, but it's kind of hilarious.
I someone reviewed it, and I always thought, and I remember reading it and looking back, and I was like, oh, that's funny. That's the game that terrified me for absolutely no reason.
Well, even like Sam was saying, it's the sort of thing, like, it goes back to amplifying it. You know, like playing your computer or with a controller versus literally seeing it, you probably feel like you're there. So I can imagine that being rough.
Exactly. Just like watching a movie, I don't care about heights. Like, it doesn't scare me at all. But like or even playing a game with heights doesn't bother me. But like in VR, just for that brief second, like it really, that's when VR like really clicked for me too. I was like, oh, yep, you feel like you're here. Yep, that's how it is.
It's cool. Robert can experience spiders in VR now.
Yeah,
Perfect.
That's what I'm waiting for. Especially with a haptic suit. Just all
There you go.
all
They're
over.
just literally on you.
Snakes and spiders, the experience comes out.
It's not even. There's no goal. It's just you're in the game, and it's all about just being surrounded by snakes and spiders.
Oh my god.
I don't know. I've heard Resident Evil VR is a real trip. I've never played it in that way, but
Yeah, I heard you need a break like every half hour.
yeah, I've heard it's wild.
Resident Evil 7 in VR, every time I get to the part where where you walk down the attic stairs or the basement stairs slowly to where the lady is, and then she jumps out at you, I just can't play it past that part.
I love that game. I just love that it's so tense and scary until he gets his hand cut off, and then he goes like, playtime's over, and then just starts shooting. Like, that game makes no sense. I don't know if it's funny or scary.
The whole scene where the Jack cuts your leg off in the garage and makes you crawl to get your leg back is basically
That's like optional.
Yeah, it's totally optional. Like, you could just not get that scene at all. But that scene is like the perfect weird VR scary hilarity. I don't know if this is funny or scary. It's weird as hell though.
I mean, if you want real horror, play the Kingdom Hearts 3 demo in VR.
Really?
Because, yeah, it doesn't. You're in the ship, and it like scales you weird. So like, mine like fucked up, and Goofy was like 18 feet tall, like in the seat next to me. It was so weird. It's the dumbest thing ever made. I don't know why they made it.
Wow.
I was gonna say one game I was gonna mention earlier that I haven't played, but maybe someone has. I know early 2000s on GameCube, Eternal Darkness.
That's a
Just
good
one game. Yeah, it's one game that I just love to look at videos of because, for those that don't know, it was a psychological thriller, and a big part of it was it would do silly things like just trying to mess with you, where it would pull up like your TV volume changing, like lowering, going higher, muting. Like it would break the fourth wall to try and mess with you. It would, when you would go to save, it would say it's deleting your save, or it would fake like your game crashing or you dying. It would just find there are like, I think, over 50 different ways they would just break the wall to try and kind of mess with your mind, and just did a lot of silly things. But it was a horror game, and it just, like I said, I had never played it, but it definitely was a smart idea just to mess with your mind.
Didn't PT do something like that? Like it would crash, but it didn't actually crash?
Once you beat like the first or like most of the demo, it would crash, I remember, and then it starts you in the first room again, and everyone, at least I know, I assumed that it was over, and then you go through the door and it's like, whoa, everything's different.
With the lunchbox talking. Yeah, I wish more games did that, to kind of like mess with you, or like use the stupid microphone on the PS4 controller to kind of, I don't know, do something. I'm so tired of walking simulators because they're too scary.
One of the cool parts about, just going back to PT real quick, since I actually made a lot of my friends play it, my brother and I, one of the big things we noticed is there were a lot of different things that you would experience in different playthroughs that other people didn't. So even though I was watching my friend play it, I'd be like, oh, I can't wait for this part to come up. Something else would come up and scare the shit out of me because it just didn't happen in my playthrough. And alternatively, the same thing happened where, I'd be waiting for something to pop up and then it just didn't. Or it would happen later. Like, that was definitely one of the weirder parts of PT. Yeah.
I'm always amazed by the people that don't get afraid of like games or movies or anything. Like my brother's one of those where watching him play PT, didn't even flinch when he got caught. He was just like, oh, is that it?
Really?
Yeah, it was like, and he had headphones on too. Didn't even jump. He just went, "Oh, all right, this is dumb."
Wow.
That's not a real person, I think.
Yeah, he's just like, "Oh, well, you know, it's a demo, I guess." Okay. Well.
Does he like games? Like, does he play games normally?
Yeah, but he's mostly like a Nintendo person, so for him, it's all about like gameplay. So like,
Wow, that's crazy.
he's one of those rare people that like for him, like Doom is the best game ever because the gameplay is good, but he hates things with like story.
Yeah, I can kind of see why it didn't scare him then, because then, like, I feel like people like that see games as kind of like toys, or like kind of giant puzzles. Like, what do I need to do to solve this puzzle?
Yeah.
Rather than, yeah, like instead of suspending your disbelief and being like, oh man, I'm walking down this creepy hallway, what do I do? You know?
That's probably where VR would have made a difference, honestly, like to try and force you to be immersed and not like take a step back from it. And like you said, Robert, focusing on the puzzles where you're not focusing on the game as much necessarily. Yeah, no, I had a friend that was the same way. Where like when we convinced him to play, I think just because of all the hype around PT at the time was a little past the first few days. He just didn't care. He was like making jokes out of everything, and that pulled him out of it. And it just made it so he wasn't, you know, scared by it. Yeah.
All right, so let's start wrapping this up now. Trying to think of like a good way to end this one because I'm totally zoned out. I guess like what are we hoping for with horror in the future? Yeah, like what do we want to see? Like we had walking simulators in the last like generation, I guess, and before that there was a lot of like action horror. Like what do you think where do you think the genre's going to go next?
I think a lot of psychological horror is kind of in right now. Like games that still have like the typical jump scares and stuff, but what's more terrifying are like the themes and everything, like Soma, for example, which I don't really want to spoil for anyone who hasn't played it, but what's really scary about that game is like the themes it explores and how fleshed out like just the atmosphere and the storytelling is in that game. It just really makes you think, because it's like pretty grounded in reality. It just really makes you think like this could be like an alternate future in a way. Those are the types of games that really scare me now, because again, games like Outlast and everything, and even the gameplay in Soma, I just find more frustrating.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we'll get to like more not conventional like spooky skeletons and ghosts scaring people, but more like ideas of
Now,
isolation
than fun or scary or anything.
You know, real scary things like loot boxes and whatnot.
Yeah,
Sure are.
I think that the tough thing now with horror is, you know, we've gotten to the point where like, you know, there are a lot of people out there who celebrate Halloween. It's kind of like a Christmas to them. So the typical things that quote unquote would scare you, right? Like werewolves, skeletons, zombies, right? That's all just fun in games now. You know, it doesn't really feel creepy. So I'd love to see games kind of take a different approach where now it's less like the tension of, is the zombie gonna get me, but more of turning everyday lifetime situations into something that slowly gets scarier. Because that's the moment when you're most vulnerable, right? Is when you're expecting something to be an everyday typical situation, but then just like something eerie goes on.
Honestly, Control has little elements of that. In like certain side areas or areas in the story where like you have to make a phone ring. Like if anyone here has played it, I'm not gonna spoil it, but like in those motel sections where like you have to open certain doors and do little puzzles, like that's sort of eerie in a way because they're everyday objects that you kind of have to interact with and that are superficial and like have these weird dynamics that they don't have in real life, and that's, to me, is really eerie. Like there are moments in Control, weirdly enough, where I'm like kind of creeped out because of things like that.
Well, what I'm most excited for about with horror stuff is for random horror scenes in completely non-horror games, because that always seems to get me, and I think they're funny and also sometimes spooky.
Yeah, I think that could be fun. Although I guess I worry with that would be like you buy an E for Everyone game for your child, and then just out of nowhere it's just this thing that scars them for life.
You mean like when they watch the Pee-wee Playhouse movie and see Large Marge?
Yep.
We need more horror scenes in Viva Pinata.
Yes.
Mario horror. That's what I want.
Mario Odyssey,
Luigi's
where you
Mansion,
throw the
dude.
hat onto a skeleton and have to scare people.
Yeah, I need the Luigi's Mansion DLC to be about Luigi's crippling loneliness and the fact that he's living in his brother's shadow forever. Maybe add a couple bones to that too, or skeletons.
And ghosts. Spooky.
But yeah, I agree. Ultimately, I think horror will need to be more depressing to scare people moving forward with games. But I think that would be really cool. And then we'll go back to traditional horror where it's just like zombies in rooms and whatnot.
Yeah. There's always room for that too.
The scariest horror is finding out how much money you owe Tom Nook.
Oh, true. That's about to happen next year.
Well, it comes out the same day as Doom, so...
We know which is the scarier one,
Yep. Animal Crossing.
obviously.
Absolutely. All right, well, that about wraps it up. Any final thoughts from anyone?
I can't wait to play Resident Evil 7 or 2.
I don't have many thoughts at all, so I don't have any final ones.
Thanks for that.
It's a strong thought.
What an
Yeah,
ending.
I was just gonna say real quick, I definitely think I haven't played as many horror games in recent times than like in the past. So I definitely should probably look into more so I could be more, knowledgeable on the subject. Like the last one I played was probably Little Nightmares, and that's like low key but kind of there. So I don't know. I'd like to see more, and I definitely agree with everything Sam was saying about like horror and VR, and I'd like to see more with that. I think that's just an interesting area, and with VR constantly changing and developers finding unique ways to use it, that could probably be a really good platform for it going forward.
Yeah, it's a cool genre that you can kind of break a lot of rules with, I feel like, because it's horror and, you can just do whatever you can to try and scare people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a feeling with the next consoles, horror is gonna take a bit of a front step. Just because it is, if you look at like this last generation, like some of the biggest games, or at least like most talked about games, were always horror. And I'm sure everyone kind of notices that, and they want to have like the next big thing, the next PT or Slenderman or something.
But you don't love Five Nights at Freddy's, like 30 different games of it?
I think those are kind of creepy. I was at the place where they made all the Chuck E. Cheeses yesterday, and they had a Chuck E. Cheese with just its skeleton and just its head like playing, and it totally reminded me of how Five Nights at Freddy's looks, and it is really creepy.
Yeah, animatronics are not it, Chief. They're terrifying.
They are scary.
Well, they're either Disney animatronics, where they're top tier, amazing, look like people, or they're Chuck E. Cheese animatronics, where it's not good.
Want to know a secret? They're both made in the same place
Oh, damn.
by the same company. Yep.
Capitalism.
Yep.
Capitalism, the most terrifying thing of all.
Yeah, that's what
a-
we'll end this on.
Yeah, that's the last horror video game.
You're gonna have games that link up to your bank account and just go, "Here's all your savings."
South
This is
Cyberpunk
your time,
is
Max.
gonna be.
It's like
Yeah, this is my time
cryptocurrency
window.
again.
I will say this, I'm really sad that that the whole every Xbox One doesn't have no longer needs a Kinect thing happened, because I was just waiting for some horror game to be like, it's the scariest thing of all, and then just turn the Kinect on.
Some Kojima stuff.
All right then. We'll just end it on there. And I'll put an intro. I'll put an ending there. Actually, we'll just end it on Sam's amazing joke there.
Alright.
My life.
Sam's so funny.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put background noise and music and stuff, so it'll sound a lot faster.
Just block out
than
the
it did.
people you don't like.
Yeah. So Sam, I'm deleting your track.
Suddenly the music gets really loud.
It's just there's these long pauses, and then just everyone going, "Okay, I agree."
Makes sense.
Put a jump scare in.
It's just
we'll
this
add
really,
Austin in later.
it's just really
Or-
bizarre.
For Halloween, you could just upload the All Sam version.
Nothing
Scariest
else.
thing of all.
It's just an hour of him just talking and agreeing to himself, and we just post that. I think that'd be perfect.
It's just the scariest thing of all.